So where Olympus Has Fallen came out at the right time to have a good solid fan base, a cult following, ironically, its sequel has come out at the wrong time. Okay, so London Has Fallen is the sequel to Olympus Has Fallen. Aaron Eckhart is still the president, and Gerard Butler is still the badass Secret Service. In London Has Fallen, the Prime Minister has died of a heart attack, and so all these world leaders come together for the funeral. Well, unfortunately, a big terrorist group had planned all this out and attacks all the world leaders. One of the primary targets is the President of the United States. So now it becomes a big action movie where Gerard Butler has to protect Aaron Eckhart. Now, I definitely really enjoyed Olympus Has Fallen. I definitely think it's way better than White House Down, which White House Down is okay. It had that 80s action vibe, and it came out at the right time where there wasn't as many R-rated violent action movies. And it came out after the really disappointing Die Hard movie where it wasn't really Die Hard at all. While Olympus Has Fallen felt more like Die Hard. And so yeah, it came out at the right time, but unfortunately, London Has Fallen has come out at the wrong time. Now I think one of the big reasons that London Has Fallen is getting some really bad critical response, because of all the things that are happening with the candidates and the politics nowadays, and it's hard not to take that and put it in perspective of this movie, because it does a few things that is really hard to separate. It does feel that politics is a major factor on whether you like this film or not. Because I noticed a bunch of people comparing this movie to Donald Trump, honestly. And yes, because of the point in time of when this movie came out, and with this campaigning and the elections and all the politics and the terrorist attacks, all of those combine to make you view this movie very differently. And yes, it deals with terrorists and anti-terrorism, and it deals with very questionable actions. But I think this movie was just meant to be a fun 80s action film that happened to be very violent and happens to have terrorists as the bad guys. After all, that's what it seemed like Olympus Has Fallen was. So for me, I tried to separate the politics from the actual movie and just try to enjoy it as an action film, and it was enjoyable. Now, I liked the chemistry and the camaraderie with Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart. I get a little bit more of that in this movie because they're together practically the entire film. I thought the beginning of the movie, where it was setting up characters and showing where they're at right now after the events of Olympus Has Fallen, and it did take the time to try to build the characters from there, and so at least I can appreciate some of that effort. Now, the main thing that's really good about this film is its 80s action, but very violent, dark, and serious 80s action, and the action sequences themselves. Now, while not all the action sequences are great, all the main big ones really are. I thought the car chase was very thrilling.
Jacob, take the wheel!
Got it! Get in!
Got it!
There's this point where they're at a safe house and it gets attacked and Gerard Butler is taking them all on. That reminded me a lot of Olympus Has Fallen. There's also this one action sequence where they're shooting down an alley and it's all meant to look as one shot. That was actually really nice. I mean, sure, other films have done that better, like Children of Men and The Revenant, so it's not like a really complicated one or really complex, but it's still really good. And of course, as you could expect, the final act is with the president being captured and him having to get him back. The action sequences leading up to getting back to the president was handled really nicely as well. So in all honesty, I have no complaints with the action. It's the best thing about this movie. And so if that's what you like and you just want to see a good action film, then that's what you're going to get, and go enjoy London Has Fallen. Unless you're on a certain political side, then maybe you might not enjoy it. Now, there are definitely a few things that could have been better in this movie. For one, they could have done more with Angela Bassett's character. I feel they definitely could have done a little bit better with the MI6 agent, because there's this subplot where there's an inside job. I mean, there's an insider that is helping the terrorists, and she's trying to figure out who it is, but it's really obvious, and also there's not a lot of it. And so I think those things could have been handled better. It's yet again another movie with Gerard Butler and bad CGI. This CGI is a lot worse than Olympus Has Fallen. And Olympus Has Fallen was a couple years back. There's a sequence with the helicopters and it just looks like a video game. All the explosions are really bad. Especially the explosion in the water with one of the leaders in a boat and it explodes and the water and the waves just look so fake. I could have sworn there was one time where a car explodes. It's one of the leaders where a bomb is planted under the car, and as the car is driving away, it blows up, and you see shrapnel and stuff all around, exploding with all these people, and it looks like they should have shredded all these people on the street, but because it's an overshot view and the people are very tiny, the real people, while the explosion is the only thing that's fake, it looks like it goes through people and they're unharmed. It's really weird looking. There's also a lot of CGI blood splatters that look really bad, which is kind of weird because there is real blood splatter in the movie as well, and you can definitely tell when it's a real one and when it's CGI, so why didn't they just do it all real? It was kind of weird. There's also really bad green screen in this movie as well. There's one moment in particular, and that's when they get out of their downed helicopter and Gerard Butler and Aaron Eckhart are together, and you see this CGI version of London in the background during this green screen, and it just looks so fake. I also want to tell you that sometimes the movie gets a little too brutal for its own good. Gerard Butler looks like he's having a blast with this character. And he was brutal in Olympus Has Fallen as well. His tactics, especially with the knife, which he uses the knife a lot in this movie as well. But there are some times where he just completely feels like a sociopath. Like, he gets too brutal even for his character. One of them is the torturing sequence where I know he's torturing a terrorist. They're bad guys, right? But he tortures it to put fear in the other person that's on the other side of the radio, and he even says it's unnecessary.
Was that really necessary?
No.
Yet, I heard a lot of people in the theaters, before he said no, a lot of people in the theaters said, yeah, duh. I'm just like, okay. Yeah, I was in the theater with a lot of people that were just screaming yes and just totally hyped by the movie. And while, yeah, it's an 80s action film, I hope most of them were excited because of that. But sometimes it felt like, kill the terrorists, kill them all, and it's just like really, just really excited. Also, they introduced the names of so many minor characters in this movie, it was getting really repetitive and really ridiculous. Like, not only did it say all the prime leaders that get assassinated, their names, as well as it shows all the main characters in this movie, their names, and their titles, but also when it gets to Morgan Freeman, that does him again, and almost like 4 or 5 people around him in the table, and some of them don't even say all that much in the movie. They have titles, they have names, you don't have to show them all. And even though I tried to keep politics out of watching this film, there are 2 things that happen in this film that I just could not ignore, even by a film standpoint. There's drone attacks in the movie, and they're done in a way that is really offensive. And this is not me going into politics. This is me, as a film goer, watching a movie. There are things in these drone strikes that are just hard to ignore. The whole motivation of the bad guy in this movie is because he gets attacked by a drone attack, and it was during a wedding of his daughter. Of course, he survives, and a few of his sons survive, which his attack is retaliation for this. But his daughter died, and I'm sure a lot of other innocent people died as well. Because I'm sure it's not like the daughter was part of the terrorist group. But the film tries to ignore the fact that all these other people, all these other probably innocent people died among the party with this drone attack. And so the villain's motivations was actually reasonable and something that you could actually get behind. But then the movie tries to make him off as this average, ordinary, evil terrorist. Not only is the first drone attack offensive, but the second one is. There's another one at the very end, and it even shows the streets as this building explodes and this debris just piles onto the street as there's innocent people innocent bystanders getting exploded by the explosion as well. It's like, and it does it in slow motion. Does it do it in slow motion? I think it does it in slow motion. And it's like, yeah, some of them might have been terrorists guarding the building or whatnot, but it seems like some of them were just passerbys or just happen to be in the street as this drone drops a bomb and just explodes them as well. There's a lot of collateral damage. And the movie plays out as if you're supposed to just scream, yeah, for this terrorist dying, while all these other innocent casualties die among with him. But out of all the flaws and all the things that I didn't like about the film, those were the only things that I really was aggravated with. Everything else was actually really fun. There were still flaws and still things that are like, eh. But for the most part, it was a fun, entertaining action film. Depending on who you are, there's a lot of things in this movie that can offend you. If you're not looking for a movie that's just supposed to be dumb action, this is not going to be the movie for you. And depending on your political standpoint, this might be one of the worst films of 2016 for you. But if you go into this movie expecting something a little bit more like Olympus Has Fallen, don't mind the bad CGI every so often, and you just want to see an ultra-violent, crazy action film, then this movie might be for you. I'm going to give London Has Fallen 3.5 stars. So have you seen London Has Fallen? What'd you think about it? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Did you think it's really dumb, fun action film? And if you like this review, please subscribe and check out my other videos of 2015 and 2016 movie reviews. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.